If you've ever thought that because you have a dog, you can't have a beautiful cottage garden, then think again, because in this video, I'm excited to share some beautiful cottage garden flowers that are actually non-toxic to dogs. I'm going to walk you through each plant with a photo, my personal experience, and all the key details you need to choose the perfect dog-friendly plants for your cottage garden. And just a disclaimer here, because new research is constantly adjusting the plants in this list, it's your responsibility as a gardener and a dog owner to do your own research just to confirm the toxicity of the plant that you like. At the time of recording, I was able to find at least 1 or 2 different sources stating that these plants are non-toxic to dogs, and I'm going to briefly put that information up on the screen along with the citations after I talk about each of the plants. So you're welcome to pause the video at that time if you want to look further into it, or you can just do your own research on that. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amy, and over at prettypurpledoor.com, I help home gardeners design 4-season landscapes that are uniquely you. I do have some dog experience. I've owned dogs my entire adult life. I also had a dog growing up, and we also fairly frequently foster dogs. So I have lots of dogs in my life and I love them. All my friends bring their dogs over. So I've had a lot of dogs in and out of the house and in and out of my landscape. And I do have a beautiful backyard cottage garden with a fenced in yard. The plants inside of that area are non-toxic to dogs. I'm very careful about that because I don't want a new foster to come in and potentially get sick while I'm trying to train them as to where they can go and where they can't go in the yard. So let's just get right into this list so that you can see some of these beautiful plants I've chosen that are non-toxic to dogs. First up is Dwarf Sunflower, and really all sunflowers are considered non-toxic to dogs. This is an annual, it grows in full sun. The dwarf version that I'm referencing here gets 3 to 4 feet high by 2.5 feet wide. It's known for its larger flower heads on short 18 to 24 inch stalks. It's all of the cheer of your traditional sunflower in just a smaller package. I use this plant all the time. It's perfect for small spaces or even for container gardens. It's a manageable height. It's easy to grow from seed, it attracts pollinators and birds, and the seeds can also be enjoyed by humans as a tasty snack. So win-win right there. And I found information on the ASPC website about this one. Next up is Cosmos Cupcakes Blush. Again, I'm just referencing a particular variety, but all varieties of Cosmos are non-toxic to dogs. This is an annual, grows in full sun. They typically get from 3 to 4 feet high to about 2 feet wide. And this variety, Cupcakes Blush, it's got these gorgeous cup-shaped flowers and they sway on top of really tall stems. They're super easy to grow from seed. They thrive in full sun. And Cupcakes Blush is also known to be drought tolerant once established, making it a really low maintenance addition to your garden. I love growing Cosmos in my garden to fill any empty areas. If you deadhead, they'll continue to reward you with prolific new blooms until it frosts. And here's some information I found on greg.app and the gardendesign.com website. Next up is Zinnia. I'm featuring here Benary's Giant Golden Yellow. I also love the Giant Lime variety. These are really big zinnias. They're annuals. They grow in full sun. The giant varieties get 3 to 4 feet high by 2.5 feet wide. All zinnias are non-toxic to dogs. They're an annual flower, easy to grow from seed, even for beginners. It's a great beginner plant. It thrives in warm soil, and this variety produces sunny gold flowers that are perfect for cut flower arrangements. All zinnias prefer full sun and rich, well-drained soil. The flowers on zinnias attract butterflies, bees, hummingbirds, and beneficial insects. Zinnias are typically grown as an annual. You can collect the seeds at the end of the season and then plant them in the following year. And here's just the ASPCA listing for that. Next up is Coneflower, or a lot of people will call this Bachelor's button. This is another annual, full sun. It gets about 2 to 3 feet high by 1 foot wide. Bachelor's buttons. They're really a true blue, like a beautiful blue color, and they're just a great addition to cottage gardens. The blooms last for about 6 weeks, so it's fairly long blooming, and it has a really fast growth rate. So it only takes 65 days to grow this from seed till when it actually blooms. So I really like that about this plant as well. A cool thing about Bachelor's buttons is that the flowers are actually edible. While it's an annual, it will typically reseed from year to year around your garden, but not very aggressively from my experience. It makes a great cut flower. It attracts pollinators. It's drought tolerant, deer resistant, and again, that blue color is just to die for. And here's ASPCA information about that plant being non-toxic to dogs. Next up is garden marigolds. They're commonly called pot marigolds, garden marigolds, things like that. Again, another annual, grows in full sun, 1 to 2 feet high by 1 to 2 feet wide. Marigolds are just a classic garden plant, especially for cottage gardens. They come in all different colors and varieties, mostly in the orange and yellow family. They're easy to grow in average, moderately fertile, well-drained soil in full sun. Marigolds also do well with some shade during hot summers, but they can get leggy in too much shade from my experience. What I love about marigolds is they also have insect repelling properties, which makes them great to plant around your vegetables. They also attract butterflies, and they make a nice cut flower too. And here's ASPCA website information about the garden marigold. Next up is sweet Alyssum. This is actually considered a hardy annual. It grows in full to part sun, and it gets about 10 inches high and 6 inches wide. So you can kind of spread seeds for this and make a really beautiful flowered ground cover carpet. Sweet Alyssum has these tall clusters of honey-scented, bee-attracting blooms. They're perfect to soften garden edges and spill from pots and window boxes. They make just an awesome, awesome cottage garden plant. And again, they're safe for dogs. This is a self-sower. It attracts beneficial hoverflies, honeybees, butterflies. I think this is just the quintessential cottage garden plant, and I love that it's also safe for dogs. And here's ASPCA information about Alyssum. As I always say, lists of beautiful plants are a great inspiration, but there's just so much more involved in designing beautiful garden beds with multiple seasons of interest. So make sure that you check out my free training. It's called 3 Garden Design Secrets, where I share the biggest mistakes that I see homeowners make and how to actually get your dream garden. It's a totally free training. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below so you can check it out. Now let's go over some perennials, and one of my favorite cottage garden plants is the purple coneflower. I'm so glad that this is also dog friendly and non-toxic. It grows in zones 3 to 8 in full to part sun. It blooms in mid to late summer for about 10 weeks, and it gets 4 feet high by 3 feet wide. Purple coneflower is actually native to most prairies, meadows, and open woods of the central to southeastern United States. In my opinion, they're an absolute must for any cottage-style garden. They stand pretty tall at about 4 feet high. The flowers have pinkish purple petals that surround a large brown protruding center. The blooms last from mid to late summer through most of the fall. I actually keep them up all winter long, and the birds can actually eat the seeds inside of the tops of them, and it also helps to redistribute them and sow themselves throughout your garden so that you get more each year. I actually read a comment on one of my videos that the coneflowers took over their garden, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem for me because I love them so much, but if that happens to you, just snip off the heads of the plants before all of the seeds can go to seed and get into the ground, and that shouldn't be a problem for you. And here's some information on Greg.app and Just Answer with information about the toxicity of coneflowers for dogs. Next up, we have Night Salvia, and I couldn't resist this beautiful picture of the dog running in the salvia field, but the May Night variety that I'm talking about here is in that smaller picture below. It's more of like a purpley blue color. It's a deeper color than what's actually in the dog photo. May Night Salvia is perennial. It grows in zones 3 to 9 in full sun to part sun. It gets about 18 inches high and 18 to 24 inches wide. It thrives in full sun, even though you can grow it in part sun, and it likes well-drained soil. It blooms from late spring, and it can rebloom through the fall if you're deadheading. Although in my experience, the reblooms are never as beautiful as that very first flush. May Night and other salvias are known for attracting butterflies and other pollinators. They're drought tolerant, they're resistant to deer in most cases, and they're just a really easygoing, beautiful plant. I'm a huge fan of May Night. I've grown it in my garden for years. Overall, it's just great, low maintenance, like the absolute perfect cottage garden plant. And it's great for any homeowner, even if you're a beginner. While it thrives in full sun, I've also had success growing salvia in partial sun. It just doesn't bloom as prolifically. So if you do have a sunny spot, it will do better there. And just a note that most salvia varieties are non-toxic to dogs. But red sage varieties, they go under Salvia splendens as their scientific name. They're known to be particularly toxic to dogs if ingested in large quantities. So make sure that you do your research on the absolute specific type of salvia before you plant this so that you don't end up planting the one that actually is toxic. And here's the ASPCA information about scarlet sage and regular sage. Next up, we have Dwarf Little Lemon Goldenrod. All varieties of goldenrod are non-toxic to dogs, but this particular variety grows in zones 5 to 8 in full sun. And I like this variety because it's very tiny, very small, very easy to squeeze into your cottage garden. It gets about 12 to 14 inches high and 18 inches wide. Dwarf Little Lemon, it's just a petite version of the native goldenrod. It's great for a fall show at the front of your border. In late summer, the foliage is completely covered in dense clusters of this bright lemon yellow flower. So I have some other varieties of goldenrod and they're more of a goldeny or almost like an orangey amber yellow color. But this one in particular is a very pure lemony yellow. Again, this is just a beautiful cottage garden flower. It's just great for the fall when there's not a lot of other things blooming. And here's a reference from Just Answer where you can ask vets different questions, and this is just confirming from a vet that it's non-toxic. Next up is Coreopsis, Early Sunrise. Again, all Coreopsis varieties are non-toxic to dogs. This particular variety grows in zones 3 to 9 in full sun to part sun. It blooms in early to late summer. This variety blooms for a very long time for me. I get about 12 weeks out of it, sometimes more. It's 18 to 24 inches high and 12 inches wide. I just love how happy these flowers are. They're just a joyful flower. They grow really naturally in dry and rocky soils throughout North America. Early Sunrise is a native cultivar of Coreopsis, which is native to Central and Eastern North America. The skinny stems are about a foot high and are topped with these beautiful, cheery, bright yellow flowers. Just another great, very prolific blooming plant to add to your cottage garden. And again, ASPCA is confirming that this is non-toxic to dogs. Next up is Joe Pieweed, and the variety that I love is called Baby Joe, but all Joe Pieweed is non-toxic to dogs. Baby Joe grows in zones 2 to 9 in full sun to part sun. It blooms in late summer through fall. I get about 7 to 8 weeks out of this. It gets 4 feet high by 3 feet wide, but in my experience over the years, this has actually spread quite a bit into larger clumps, and it does get a little bit taller than that 4-foot height range. So I think over time, it just sort of does its own thing and it gets a little bit bigger. But Baby Joe is a native cultivar of Joe Pieweed, which is native to Eastern and Central North America. The only real difference between Baby Joe and regular Joe Pieweed is just the size. So that's a great kind of cultivar to use in your cottage garden, where it's still got all of the benefits of the native plant. It's just a little bit smaller, so it fits a little bit better. And again, this is another great choice as a late summer statement for the garden since it blooms late summer and into fall. It's got 4-foot long stems with green lance-shaped foliage, and the flowers at the top are in this dusty rose color. It almost reminds me of a giant Sedum Angelina or something like that without the succulent qualities of it, but the flowers are just really beautiful. And it's just absolutely covered in butterflies and other pollinators throughout the season. It's a great plant. I love this so much. And ASPCA is also stating that this is non-toxic to dogs. Next up, we have Aster Sky Blue. All Aster varieties are non-toxic to dogs, but the Sky Blue variety here that I'm featuring is one of my favorites. It grows in zones 3 to 8 in full sun to part shade. It gets 2 to 3 feet high by 18 to 24 inches wide. Sky Blue Aster, they just kind of look like daisies, but they give you different color varieties. This is almost like a pale bluish purple color with a yellow center. It's got a really airy texture to it. It blooms from late August to October. It's a North American native wildflower. It's an absolute butterfly magnet. It adds beauty to your landscape. It's got a really pretty scent to it as well. And of course, non-toxic to dogs, which is another bonus. In a cottage garden, I think this would look really beautiful with the goldenrod because they do bloom around the same time. So the aster and goldenrod combination is really a big winner in my book. And here's just some information from Greg.app and Earth Tone website stating the toxicity is safe for dogs. Next up is Catmint Walkers Low. All varieties of catmint are non-toxic to dogs. This particular variety is one of my favorites. It's a little bit more messy than some of the more compact and petite varieties you can get now, so I guess it's just a matter of your own personal preference. This one grows in zones 4 to 9 in full sun. I also have success growing it in part sun. It blooms late spring through fall for about 8 weeks with multiple reblooms. It gets 2 to 3 feet high by 2 to 3 feet wide, so this is more of like a spreading version of catmint. And like I said, there are other varieties that are more petite and may fit in a smaller space. This is a mounding perennial, and I just love the smell. It's like this spicy, fragrant smell that comes from the leaves, and it makes a really great border plant because if you brush by it, you get that scent as well. When it blooms, it has these small lavender bluish flowers. They're super pretty in a cottage garden, and they really catch the light beautifully. I have a lot of really beautiful photos with this as the star, and the one on the screen is one from my front yard border as well. So this is absolutely one of my favorite go-to plants in the garden because I can't really grow lavender with the conditions that I have, so it's a great replacement for lavender, and again, completely non-toxic to dogs. Here's just some information from Greg.app and Great Garden Plants website stating that catmint is safe and pet friendly. Next up, we have Sedum Autumn Joy, and this grows in zones 3 through 9 in full sun. It gets 1.5 to 2 feet high and wide. Autumn Joy sedum is low maintenance and easy to grow perennial, prefers full sun, well-drained soil, but it's pretty adaptable to all different conditions. I find that sedums are perfect for cottage gardens. They're just so easy care and so easygoing. The photo here, I'm not sure if this is actually the Autumn Joy variety. In my experience, the Autumn Joy is not as fuchsia. It's not as vibrant pink as what's showing here in this picture, but there are varieties that do get that color. So you'll just have to do your research if you really want that color. In late summer, it gets beautiful flat-topped flower in different shades of pink, very pollinator friendly, and what I also love about Autumn Joy is how beautiful it can look in the winter. The seed heads get very dark and the plant stays upright all winter to add more interest to my garden. So again, another perfect multi-season interest cottage garden plant that's also non-toxic to dogs. And here's information from Greg.app and Just Answer confirming the lack of toxicity to dogs. Next up is Sedum Angelina, and pretty much every variety of sedum is going to be non-toxic to dogs. This is just another one of my favorites. The Angelina variety grows in zones 4 through 9 in full to part shade. I grow it everywhere. It doesn't seem to have really set preferences as far as sun levels. It gets 4 to 6 inches high and 18 to 24 wide. It's a beautiful ground cover. It really keeps down the weeds, and you can just grab like little clumps of it and plant it in different places and just fill in all over your garden. Online, it says that it needs full sun, but I've grown it in almost complete shade with no issues. You really can't kill it. The new growth is yellow, and then all spring and summer, this plant is a very vibrant green, like a chartreusey green color. And in the fall, it turns almost an orange color, and this lasts throughout the winter. I'm in zone 6B to 7A, and I find this plant to be evergreen here. It spreads really slowly. It doesn't choke out other plants, so it's not an aggressive variety, and it's very easy to remove or divide this plant. I highly recommend checking out Sedum Angelina if you're looking for an easy care ground cover that also provides some beautiful interest in multiple seasons and can cut down on weeds. It might even be a great substitute in an area where your dog might be running a lot and kind of wrecking all of the grass that you have. I would consider trying it in an area like that. It is a tough plant and just beautiful. And here's just some more resources about this being non-toxic to dogs. Next up, we have Summer Sweet Ruby Spice, and this is a variety of Clethra. So Clethra in general is non-toxic to dogs. This variety grows in zones 4 through 9 in full sun to part shade. It gets about 3 to 6 feet high by 3 to 4 feet wide. So this is a small to medium shrub with vivid pink flower spikes that bloom in summer on new growth of the shrub. In the fall, the foliage turns yellow, which adds to the multi-season interest. It grows well in sun to part shade. It's very tolerant of a variety of conditions, including along roadsides and seashores. It can tolerate the salt. It also tolerates clay soil and most soil types very well. So this is just a really great fixer plant, in my opinion, and the blooms are just beautiful on this. So I think this would fit in perfectly into a low maintenance cottage garden, especially because it's dog friendly and non-toxic. And here's just information from Greg.app and wildflower.org stating the non-toxicity of Clethra. Next up, we have all gold Japanese forest grass, and this grows in zones 5 through 9 in full shade. So another shade plant for you. It gets about 18 to 24 inches high and wide. And this particular variety called all gold has a variegated yellow / chartreuse foliage. There's different varieties of Japanese forest grass. They're called Hakina Kloa, I believe is how you say it. So all of those varieties would be safe for dogs. I love this variety of all gold because it's fairly hardy down to zone 5. Growing this in shade, it really can brighten up an area. It's just a really well-behaved and beautiful looking grass. It's a medium size. It forms a cascading mound. I love the ability to put this near a border or a path to sort of soften the edges of things. And because it's adaptable to shade and very low maintenance, it's a really excellent choice for various garden settings. It's especially difficult to find grasses that will grow in the shades. So this is always my go-to in situations like that. And here's just information from Greg.app and Gardener's World stating that Japanese forest grass is non-toxic to dogs. Another grass I really love is called blue fescue grass. This variety is called Elijah Blue, and this is just a photo from my home garden in my front yard. I use blue fescue everywhere. I absolutely love this plant. It grows in zones 4 through 9 in full sun, gets about a foot high and 1 to 2 feet wide when it's full grown. It's a really versatile and compact ornamental grass with these spiky steel blue plumes that look great in every single season. In summer, it produces wheat-colored plumes. They're seen in the photo. They kind of shoot up over top of the blue color of the rest of the plant. They work really well as a ground cover. I use them a lot as edging for borders, and I've also seen people grow them in containers. From what I've read, blue fescue is also deer-resistant, and it's suitable for firescaping in coastal climates, and it has low water usage. It's also salt-tolerant, per my own personal experience, because I use it to edge borders along my sidewalks in the front of my property where we're always salting, and the road is right there too. And here's just information from Greg.app and Embrace Pet Insurance website stating the non-toxicity of blue fescue for dogs. Another grass I really love and all of my pets seem to love is the Karl Foerster feather reed grass. This grows in zones 4 through 9 in full sun to part shade. It gets 4 to 5 feet high and very narrow at 1.5 to 2 feet wide. So I love this plant because it gives me the height without taking up too much ground space in my garden. Karl Foerster is just one of my favorite grasses. I love that it's so narrow and upright, and I also love that it sways in the breeze in such a lovely way. I think it's really important, especially in a cottage garden, to have these taller plants that add some movement when the breeze blows, and Karl Foerster really does this beautifully for me. It blooms quite early in early summer, and it shoots these beautiful tan stems about 5 to 6 feet into the air. They just float and sway above other plants in the garden, and it's really, really pretty. It also looks really nice in winter. The green grass color bleaches out into like a pale but a warm tan, and it typically stays upright unless we get like some really heavy snow, then it will splay. I think it's a beautiful structural element in the garden, a beautiful grass all year long, not just in winter. And my dog loves this. As I was reading about this on the ASPCA website, they said to be careful because it can be a little bit sharp and it can actually scratch your pet, but I've had no issues with this. My cats love it, my dog loves it, and they're always rubbing up against it and kind of chewing on it. I don't know why they seem to go to this plant, but I'm just really glad that it's a non-toxic option that I can use in my garden that we all enjoy. And here's just the information from the ASPCA website stating that it is non-toxic, but does have sharp points that could scratch your pets. So I guess use your own discretion with that information. And again, just a reminder that everyone should be doing their own research on non-toxic, dog-friendly plants before planting. If you aren't sure or you can't get clear information on this, it's best just to not plant it. The absolute best resource I've found for this information is actually the ASPCA website. While they have a pretty extensive list of plants, unfortunately they don't have every single plant. So that's where it can get a little bit tricky. And the search features in the site, unfortunately, again, aren't that great. So that's another obstacle to overcome when you're doing this research. I'm going to leave this link that's on the screen here in the description below the video as well so that you can access it later. And your best bet when researching is to use the scientific, not the common name of the plant. I found that that's a lot easier, and it just gives you a better peace of mind knowing that the actual scientific plant name is the one that you're planting and that it's safe for your pet. And just another note that I've learned while doing some of this research is that even though a plant is considered non-toxic, it doesn't necessarily mean that ingestion in the right quantities might not cause some mild discomfort or gastrointestinal issues for your dog. So even if the plant is non-toxic, if they eat a whole bunch of it, they still might get sick, but it's not toxic to the point where it's going to cause serious harm to them. And as I'm sure you know, making sure that your plants are non-toxic to your dog is really just the first step to creating a dog-friendly landscape that you can both enjoy. So for more tips and info about that, check out this video that's right here on the screen. I will put it up as soon as it's available, and I'll see you over there to talk more about dog-friendly landscaping.